The battlefield collapsed in an instant. Sacred flames devoured the sky. Corpse devils poured forth from shattered coffins. Cultivators' bled formations broke, and hope thinned with every breath. Then thunder roared. Silver light split the darkness, and a single figure descended. From that moment on, the war would no longer follow anyone's plan. If you enjoy my way of explaining and storytelling, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really motivates me to keep creating. At that moment, Han Li felt an oppressive gloom weighing heavily upon his heart. Part of it stemmed from the cunning of the two heavenly tigers. Like sticky tar, they clung to him relentlessly, yet neither dared to face him in a direct confrontation. Instead, they circled nearby, harassing him incessantly, while carefully avoiding close combat. Not long after, Han Li deliberately revealed a flaw in his defenses, successfully luring one of the beasts into a reckless attack. In response, he retaliated with ferocious force, cleaving one of the demon beast's claws cleanly in half. However, from that moment onward, the two heavenly tigers altered their tactics. They no longer dared to remain near him, instead attacking from afar by launching orbs of light. And whenever Han Li attempted to shake them off with his thunderstorm wings, the two beasts immediately gave chase, hounding him without pause or respite. The second source of his gloom was the azure light doppelganger. This strange entity appeared to be formed entirely of pure wood spirit chi. The bamboo cloudswarm swords were utterly ineffective against it, no matter how much sword chi struck its body. The attacks simply scattered apart, dissolving into mist before merging back into the doppelganger once more. This was the first time Han Li had encountered such a phenomenon, and it left him inwardly shaken. He promptly attempted to suppress it using the celestial ice flames, yet to his astonishment, the azure doppelganger opened its mouth and spat out a blue bowl-like treasure that absorbed the flames entirely. A chill ran down Han Li's spine at the sight. Fortunately, having already refined the celestial ice flames into unity with his body, Han Li was able to will them free from the bowl and draw them back into himself. Even so, the amount of ice flames he possessed was limited. Losing even a tiny fragment would have been a painful blow. Because of this, Han Li did not dare to deploy the purple apex flames. As for the thousand-fold mountain and his other treasures, he tested them briefly, only to find their effects minimal, forcing him to put them away. Although the azure doppelganger was not invincible, each wound dimmed its glow and caused its figure to shrink slightly. It was not an opponent that could be dealt with in a short span of time. Fortunately, it lacked particularly vicious techniques or powerful magic treasures. It could only attack by releasing strands of azure chi, something Han Li could handle with ease. From its behavior, it was clear that the doppelganger's sole purpose was to restrain and delay him. As for Feng Bing, the red-clothed woman, despite being at the peak of the mid-nascent soul stage, she was still clearly outmatched by the late-nascent soul spell warrior. Though she pushed her techniques and abilities to their limits, she steadily fell into a disadvantageous position. From time to time, the fourth divine sage Tianzhong cast glances toward Han Li. Each look felt like needles piercing his back, filling him with unease. At the same time, the seven great truths cultivators were barely managing to withstand the onslaught of the Mulan sacred bird. Han Li's heart sank at the sight. As matters stood, their only hope lay in freeing the cultivators trapped within the blood barrier. Otherwise, they would lose all momentum and suffer a crushing defeat, forced to retreat in utter disarray. After a brief moment of contemplation, Han Li steeled his resolve. He could no longer allow this stalemate to persist. He immediately released several sword streaks, forcing the heavenly tigers to retreat momentarily. Then, slapping his storage pouch, he produced a wooden box densely covered in talisman seals. The instant the azure doppelganger saw it, it let out a startled cry and launched a furious barrage of wood spirit threads toward Han Li. Han Li's figure blurred. With a sharp command, swordlight burst forth from his body, slicing through the incoming threads. At the same time, azure light flashed from the wooden box as the talisman seals shattered. A streak of crimson light shot forth, circling once before coming to rest in Han Li's palm. It was the spirit subjugation talisman. Without the slightest hesitation, Han Li slapped the crimson talisman onto his body. It vanished instantly in a flash of red light. Azure light flickered across Han Li's face as he took a deep breath. In front of him, a massive flood dragon phantom materialized over 30 meters in length, its body blazing crimson. Identical in appearance to a grade 8 venomous flood dragon. The flood dragon coiled above him and unleashed a sky-shaking roar. The terrifying sound sent tremors through the hearts of all nearby cultivators, momentarily halting the surrounding battles. Tianzhong frowned deeply upon seeing this, his expression turning solemn. Feng Bing, however, watched with bright, expectant eyes. As the roar faded, the flood dragon spiraled upward, its massive form rapidly shrinking before plunging straight into Han Li's body and vanishing without a trace. Instantly, a searing heat surged through him. A small crimson flood dragon image burned itself into his back, radiating brilliant light. Crimson radiance pulsed from Han Li's body as fingernail-sized scales emerged one after another, gleaming brilliantly. Then a sharp pain shot through his head, and an exquisite, luminous flood dragon horn with 10 sharp points pushed forth from his brow. Feeling the astonishing surge of spiritual qi emanating from himself, Han Li was struck speechless. The spirit subjugation talisman had vaguely described its effects, refining a demon soul's cultivation and fusing it into one's body to greatly enhance strength. But it had never mentioned that the user would undergo a partial demonic transformation. Naturally, this transformation was far weaker than a true spirit-fused technique. At the very least, Han Li had not grown fangs or a flood dragon tail. Instead, it bore a strong resemblance to Manhua's heaven-bearing devil arts. Han Li sighed softly and gently brushed his newly formed horn, remaining silent. What Han Li did not know was that the creator of this talisman had devised it specifically to remedy the flaws of the spirit-fused technique. Not only could the user retain full consciousness, but their vitality and lifespan would not be overdrawn. Its sole drawback lay in its refinement, an almost impossibly difficult process. In this world, most cultivators would never even encounter a grade 8 demon beast, let alone obtain its soul. Moreover, the demon soul itself had to be refined beforehand, or it would instead bring disaster upon the user. Although low-grade demon souls could be used to refine a spirit subjugation talisman, their demonic qi was far too impure. Such talismans would merely replicate the effects of a spirit-fused technique. Thus, it was strictly emphasized that only grade 8 demon souls or higher could be used. Despite his surprise, Han Li felt his cultivation surge, rising directly to the peak of early nascent soul stage. The talisman's effects were truly extraordinary. The two heavenly tigers grew uneasy under the oppressive flood dragon aura radiating from Han Li's body. However, after the azure doppelganger shouted at them, the beasts quickly regained their composure. Han Li sneered coldly. Spreading his thunderstorm wings, he vanished in a ring of thunder, reappearing 30 meters away. Startled, the two heavenly tigers immediately pursued him in flashes of azure light, spitting out multiple orbs of light in rapid succession. A cold glint flashed through Han Li's eyes. Thunder roared once more as he abruptly disappeared, only to reappear behind one of the beasts. At that instant, the other heavenly tiger unleashed a dense barrage of light orbs, attempting to force Han Li to defend himself and give its companion a chance to escape. But with his greatly enhanced cultivation, Han Li no longer needed to restrain his swordlight. Crimson and azure radiance burst from his body as he boldly relied on his spiritual qi to block the incoming attacks. In a blur of motion, he extended his arms, slashing forward with terrifying speed and momentum, leaving behind an azure streak. The heavenly tiger, shocked beyond measure, failed to activate instantaneous movement. In desperation, it spat out its azure yellow demon core to block the attack. At the same time, the azure doppelganger rushed forward in alarm, spreading its arms and releasing countless wood spirit threads toward Han Li. Thunderous explosions rang out as the light orbs detonated against Han Li's body, causing him to sway slightly, but he suffered not the slightest injury. His fully powered sword wing cleaved straight through the demon core and split the heavenly tiger apart. Deprived of instantaneous movement, the beast stood no chance. Meanwhile, the azure doppelganger's threads wrapped around Han Li's body, only for crimson light to flare forth, instantly blackening the threads and causing them to dissipate into nothingness. The flood dragon poison. Han Li was overjoyed. Without using any techniques, merely relying on his body's spirit light, he had effortlessly dissolved the attack. The azure doppelganger recoiled in visible fear. A mournful howl echoed through the air. Seeing its companion slain, the remaining heavenly tiger was consumed by violent fury. In a flash of azure light, it teleported directly beside Han Li and slashed down wildly with its foot-long light-wreathed claws. Han Li's expression did not change. He raised his scale-covered claw, crimson radiance surging forth as it collided head-on with the attack. Bang! Han Li easily knocked aside the heavenly tiger's strike. In the same breath, he thrust his other arm forward, piercing straight through the beast's body. Clutching an azure yellow demon core in his claw, he withdrew his arm as the heavenly tiger's corpse collapsed to the ground. With the immense boost granted by the spirit subjugation talisman, Han Li slew both heavenly tigers in the span of mere breaths. This overwhelming display of might caused the azure doppelganger to falter, finally abandoning its pursuit. Han Li turned slowly to face it, coldly appraising the trembling figure. At that moment, Tianzhong witnessed everything fury and alarm erupting in his heart. He commanded his rainbow wheel to attack the beautiful woman with all its might before abruptly disengaging and flying straight toward Han Li. But just then, a muffled explosion resounded. A nearby crimson barrier shattered, releasing a torrent of glacial mist. From within it, a silver streak shot forth, spiraling through the air, once before coming to a halt beside Han Li. As the light slowly faded, it revealed a beautiful woman dressed in white. She was the cultivator surnamed Bai, the same woman who appeared to share an unresolved past with Master Sunreach. Hovering in mid-air, she swept her surroundings with an indifferent gaze. When her eyes landed on Han Li and Feng Bing, a subtle ripple finally stirred across her otherwise cold expression. Her sudden emergence caused Tianzhong to unconsciously halt mid-air, his expression flickering with uncertainty. The moment Feng Bing saw Cultivator Bai break free from the blood barrier, her spirits soared. She cried out loudly, "Fellow Taoist Bai, you've arrived at the perfect time. This is the fourth Mulan Divine Sage. Quickly help me restrain him so fellow Taoist Han can free the others." Cultivator Bai cast an icy glance at Tianzhong, her voice dripping with killing intent, as she said coldly, "The fourth Divine Sage. So you were involved in this scheme as well. I never expected that aside from that youngster, there would be yet another capable of breaking through the blood barrier." Tianzhong muttered to himself, completely ignoring her question. "It seems the yin sifting sect is utterly unreliable. You're courting death." Being ignored outright, Cultivator Bai's face darkened with fury. She swiftly formed a series of hand seals, condensing a vast expanse of radiant white mist, before launching it toward the divine sage with astonishing momentum. At the same time, Feng Bing pointed toward the fire spirit bottle, attacking from the opposite side in perfect coordination. Han Li no longer hesitated. Spreading his wings once more, he vanished in a crack of thunder and reappeared near another blood barrier. Though he was confident that with the power of the spirit subjugation talisman, he could eventually slay the azure doppelganger, freeing the trapped cultivators was far more critical to the outcome of the battle. Facing the blood barrier, Han Li waved his hand, summoning a lightning bead into his palm. "Be careful, Master." Just as he was about to hurl the lightning bead forward, Silvermoon's urgent voice rang out from the depths of his consciousness. Han Li's heart jolted. Without hesitation, he flung the lightning bead, sending it crashing down toward the blood barrier in a fierce streak of azure light. Yet in that very instant, a head-sized sphere of azure flame surged forth to intercept it. Han Li's pupils shrank as he watched the flame collide directly with the lightning bead. With a soft pop, the lightning bead was silently swallowed by the fire. The flames churned and twisted rapidly, reshaping themselves into a foot-long azure firebird that hovered serenely in the air. Han Li's expression turned grave. He hastily formed a hand seal, detonating the lightning bead from within the firebird's body. However, aside from a slight sway, the firebird emerged unscathed, its form only marginally swollen as it stared coldly at him. Alarm surged through Han Li. He lifted his head just in time to see a series of azure fireballs streaking toward him from the direction of the Mulan sacred bird. As they neared the crimson barriers, each fireball transformed in the blink of an eye into an azure firebird, which then began circling the blood barriers ominously. At that moment, realization struck Han Li. These firebirds were clearly connected to the sacred bird. No wonder the lightning beads only strengthened them. These creatures had been formed from the ancient lantern flames themselves. Not far from the sacred bird spell warrior, Lu stared coldly at Han Li. Their gazes met, and as Han Li realized the sacred bird's connection to her, his anger flared. Yet when his eyes fell upon the 9 ancient lanterns floating beside her, he involuntarily narrowed his gaze, calmly studying the blazing flames with a contemplative expression. The azure firebirds showed no intention of attacking him directly. Instead, they continued to circle the blood barriers, sealing them tightly. At that moment, a flash of white light appeared beside Han Li, and Silvermoon emerged. With a remorseful expression, she said softly, "Master, please forgive me for being of no use earlier. Those heavenly tigers were far too intelligent. Had I drawn any closer, I would have been discovered." "That's enough," Han Li replied calmly, shaking his head. "You did everything you could." After a brief pause, he continued, "Take these 2 lightning beads. Try to slip past them and rescue the cultivators inside. Even if you can free just one, it will help." Silvermoon accepted the lightning beads respectfully. This servant will do her utmost. With that, she vanished once more in a flash of white light. Han Li turned his gaze back toward Tianzhong. Scarlet flames and icy white mist were violently intertwined with flashes of rainbow light erupting from within. For the moment, it was impossible to tell who held the upper hand. As for the azure doppelganger, it had vanished without a trace, whether it was engaged elsewhere or had been withdrawn by Tianzhong, now reassured by the sacred bird's intervention, remained unknown. Shaking his head, Han Li shifted his gaze toward the dozens of azure firebirds, his eyes burning with fierce intent. Crimson azure light surged from his body as he raised both hands, summoning the blue light shield. With a swift hand seal, the shield expanded to block his front, while another lightning bead appeared in his palm. Thunder clapped behind him. Han Li blurred and reappeared 40 meters into the air. Before he could throw the lightning bead, all the surrounding firebirds shot toward him simultaneously. In an instant, a shroud of azure flames engulfed him completely. At that moment, Longhan withdrew his gaze from Han Li. He had initially hoped Han Li could free the trapped cultivators and turn the tide of battle. But upon seeing the sacred bird unleash multiple firebirds, his expression darkened. He knew their chances had grown slim. Turning his attention toward the spell warriors in the distance, he saw that although the 7 Great Truths cultivators were barely holding back the sacred bird's azure demon flames, they clearly would not last much longer. Despite possessing only late nascent soul cultivation, the sacred bird displayed abilities belonging to the deity transformation stage. "Release the yin-yang devils," Long Han commanded, grimly revealing the final card hidden up his sleeve. "Tell them not to concern themselves with slaughter, have them deal with the ancient flames." "Yes." A harmonious bond sect cultivator waiting nearby immediately flew off to relay the order. Soon after, a great uproar erupted. 2 eerie coffins, one black, one white, were summoned forth. 16 male and female harmonious bond sect disciples seated themselves around the coffins, chanting incantations and striking them with various spell seals as they began unsealing them. As the chanting continued, the talismans covering the coffins trembled violently. Heavy thuds echoed from within, as if limbs were pounding against the wood. Hearing this, Longhan raised his brows slightly. He had long heard rumors of the harmonious bond sect's yin-yang corpse devils. It was said that these 2 devils had once been Dao companion elders from a previous generation, both possessing early nascent soul cultivation. For unknown reasons, they had betrayed the sect and turned to the ghost Dao, transforming themselves into living corpses. After rampaging across the cultivation world, they attempted to annihilate the harmonious bond sect itself, slaughtering over 100 disciples before being captured alive by multiple sect elders. Using an ancient technique to erase their consciousness, they were refined into the legendary yin-yang corpse devils entities, rumored to be even more powerful than they had been in life. As these thoughts crossed Long Han's mind, the sounds from the coffins grew increasingly violent. With each strike of a spell seal, more talismans fell away. The 32 disciples surrounding the coffins grew visibly tense, their eyes locked onto the remaining talismans. With a sharp pop, the final 2 talismans flew free. The harmonious bond sect disciples immediately scattered. A violent explosion erupted from the coffins, filling the air with a rancid stench. 2 indistinct silhouettes, one black, one white, shot forth, disappearing in opposite directions. A blood-curdling scream rang out. 2 Dao-robed disciples were seized, their throats torn open as the figures drank their blood essence. Seeing this, the remaining harmonious bond sect cultivators sighed in relief and halted. Cultivators from the other sects looked on in shock. An elderly man with disheveled hair stepped forward calmly and said, "Good. Having consumed the blood essence of a virgin male and female, the devils will not feed indiscriminately." Raising his arms, he revealed 2 green bronze plates engraved with talismanic characters. Streaks of grey light shot forth, embedding themselves into the corpse devils' foreheads. The devils shuddered, ceasing their feeding. Slowly, stiffly, they rose and floated to the front of the cultivator army. Their true appearances were revealed, drawing gasps of astonishment. The yin-yang corpse devils were shockingly a young man and woman with refined features. The man possessed sharp brows and bright eyes. The woman radiated elegant dignity. Yet despite their lifelike appearances, their eyes were utterly devoid of vitality. Were it not for the blood still dripping from the corners of their mouths, they might have seemed like an ordinary pair of Tao companions. Instead, an indescribable stench of decay emanated from them, nauseating all who. The old man poured spiritual power into the bronze plates. Grey light enveloped the devils as they stood motionless. Chanting swiftly, he caused the plates to float into the air. Suddenly, he struck them with spell seals. 2 thumb-thick beams of light shot forth, piercing directly into the devils' foreheads. Radiant light flared within their eyes. Putting away the bronze plates, the old man pointed toward the massive azure sacred bird and commanded coldly, "Go." The yin-yang devils turned their heads in unison. Then, standing shoulder to shoulder, their bodies suddenly dissolved into a gust of eerie green wind, leaving behind a rotting stench as they shot toward the direction of the Mulan sacred bird. Seeing this, the cultivators below finally let out sighs of relief. With these blood-sucking monsters positioned at the front, their confidence rose considerably. Though the green winds appeared sluggish to the eye, they were in truth astonishingly swift. In the blink of an eye, the yin-yang devils had already traversed half the distance, their forms gradually vanishing from sight. The surrounding cultivators stared in astonishment, then subconsciously turned their gazes toward the draped-haired old man controlling the corpse devils. His expression remained completely calm, which greatly reassured those watching him. On the spell warrior side of the battlefield, the massive azure bird continued to calmly release waves of demon fire, firmly suppressing the 7 great truths cultivators. Drawing upon the world's ambient spiritual chi, the bird was able to gather all fire spirit energy within a 5-kilometer radius directly into its body, converting it effortlessly into azure demon flame without consuming its own reserves. As time passed, the influx of fire spirit power only increased. This was the terrifying distinction between the deity transformation stage and all lower realms. It was precisely for reasons like this that whenever a deity transformation cultivator appeared in Heavenly South, they could sweep across the continent without fear. From the very beginning, the 7 great truths cultivators had relied solely on the combined might of their magic treasures to barely restrain the beast. But as time dragged on, not only had the devil isolating formation been shattered, even the flames once trapped within had escaped. Now the cultivators were expending all their strength merely to preserve their lives. At that moment, the sacred bird abruptly ceased its flames and cast a bewildered glance around, as if sensing something amiss. With a sharp cry, it spread its wings wide, releasing an azure ring of light that expanded to cover an area over 300 meters. With a crackling sound, a nearly imperceptible cloud of green smoke appeared within the light. An instant later, the yin-yang devils emerged from it. Their concealment shattered. The 2 devils let out shrill shrieks. Their bodies twisted violently as they underwent a transformation. Red hair burst forth. Green skin spread across their flesh, and their forms swelled to a height of 6 meters. Their trembling fingers shot out dozens of threads of grey light toward the enormous bird. The azure bird paused for a heartbeat before screeching in fury. Seeing the devil's attack, it opened its beak and unleashed a pillar of azure flame. At the same time, it spread its wings, engulfing itself in a tempest of demon fire and sweeping a 40-meter-tall wave of azure flames toward the 2 devils. Yet through some unknown technique, the yin-yang devils countered by releasing dense threads of undead chi. These threads resisted the demon flames, allowing the devils to withstand the attack and press their assault. With the sacred bird's attention diverted, the 7 great truths cultivators rallied. Their spirits surged as they recombined their treasures and unleashed their power once more. Just as the corpse devils and the cultivators jointly pressured the sacred bird, the yin-yang devils suddenly flashed with grey light. In a blink, they darted behind the massive bird, slipping through the sea of flames and charging directly toward the ancient lanterns nearby. Seeing this spell warrior, Lu calmly struck one of the lanterns with a spell seal. The lanterns trembled as a single ember ignited, then in the blink of an eye, 9 embers spun together and transformed into 9 azure firebirds. Spreading their wings, they intercepted the devils head-on. The devils met them with savage ferocity. Grey, undead chi spilled from their mouths as their fingers transformed into claws, tearing the firebirds apart one by one in blurs of motion, their claws pulsing with dull grey light. Yet in that brief moment of delay, the massive bird suddenly twisted its head toward the two corpse devils and spewed forth an enormous cloud of azure flame, engulfing them completely. In an instant, the yin-yang devils were swallowed once more by a sea of fire. The hearts of the 7 great truths cultivators sank. At that moment, the shriveled old spell warrior observed the scene from afar and smiled faintly before murmuring something to the black-robed woman beside him. She followed his gaze to the battlefield and nodded slowly. Noticing that both sides, spell warriors and cultivators alike, were visibly exhausted, her lips moved as she issued a command. A group of black-robed men flew out from the spell warrior camp, arranging themselves in a straight line. Each wore 7 bulging pouches at their waist. Then the black-robed woman opened her mouth and spat out a small, exquisite flag. Though only 2 inches long and faintly glowing black, it expanded to 3 meters as it flew through the air. Pointing coldly, she sent the treasure streaking skyward. The black flag trembled and vanished in a blink. Moments later, a sinister wind swept across the battlefield as black clouds rolled in, plunging the land into darkness. Alarm spread among the cultivators as they looked up. With the sky blackened, the black-robed men hurled their storage pouches to the ground. As incantations poured from their lips, dense black fog and eerie winds burst forth. In moments, the land was shrouded in black mist, vague figures shuffling within. Scales glinted faintly like armored troops emerging from the darkness. The sight filled the cultivators with dread. Long Han frowned deeply, releasing a silent sigh. Soon the fog thinned as entire armies emerged. Their forms became clear, fleshless corpses clad in copper armor. Though their movements were stiff and their armor clanked as they advanced, each corpse possessed glowing green eyes, exposed fangs, and foundation establishment cultivation. Among them stood 3 towering corpse lords with core formation cultivation, their shifting gazes betraying a higher intelligence. A cultivator behind Long Han cried out in horror, "Copper-armored corpses. How can there be so many? There are thousands of them." Long Han replied coldly, "It's nothing unexpected. With a devilish sect from the Jin Empire aiding them, this was inevitable. Had this been the start of the battle, we'd have nothing to fear. But now, after exhausting ourselves against the spell warriors, these corpses will overwhelm us. All we can do is advance and face them head-on." The others exchanged bitter smiles. Even if they abandoned their posts, the spell warriors would release their own reserves. The battle was already lost. As for the 3 great heavenly south cultivators battling the Mulan sages above, the fight was still undecided. Thunderous echoes continued to shake the sky. They could not be relied upon. Just as despair settled in and Long Han prepared his men for a final stand, explosive howls suddenly rang out from afar. Silver light flooded the battlefield as a colossal beast emerged, a 70-meter-tall ape with pitch-black fur sharp as arrows, eyes blazing crimson, and a grotesquely twisted nose. The massive ape turned its head toward the copper-armored corpses, beat its chest wildly, and let out an excited roar before smashing its limbs into the ground and charging straight toward a nearby group. The corpses reacted instantly, rising into the air and spewing dense threads of black chi that enveloped the ape in a massive cloud. Though individually weak when unleashed en masse, even a nascent soul cultivator would hesitate before such an attack. Yet the ape did not dodge. Instead, it snorted violently, firing dense beams of yellow light from its nostrils. The beams transformed into a yellow cloud that swept through the black mist at lightning speed, devouring it before being inhaled back into the ape's mouth. The mindless corpses froze in place. Seizing the moment, the ape continued snorting yellow mist, surging forth again and again, absorbing the black chi into its body. One by one, the undead chi vanished, and the corpses dropped lifelessly to the ground. In moments, hundreds of refined corpses had been erased. The ape licked its lips, eyeing the remaining corpses with unmistakable hunger. The ordinary corpses felt no fear, but the 3 corpse lords grew restless, fear and hesitation flashing in their eyes. Both armies stared in stunned awe at the ape's overwhelming power. The black-robed woman was utterly shaken. After exchanging a brief word with the shriveled old man, she personally shot toward the ape in a streak of yellow light. Seeing the ape open its mouth again, she hastily waved her arm, forming a 10-meter-long blade of purple light that cleaved downward. Before it could strike, thunder roared. Silver light flashed. An azure-robed youth appeared atop the ape's shoulder. With a casual wave, he summoned a blue light shield. Clang! Blue and purple light collided violently. Both recoiled. The youth staggered slightly, shock flickering across his face. He looked calmly at the black-robed woman and asked indifferently, "A devil cultivator?" Golden lightning suddenly erupted around him, arcs of varying sizes dancing across his body, radiating blinding brilliance. Hanley had arrived.